This is Nightline and I'm Raymond. News making the headlines. Elmina plane crash. Victims' remains to be released on Monday. And government to provide necessary assistance to families of victims. Good morning. The remains of the Elmina plane crash victims can only be collected on Monday at the earliest. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein said this is because there were approximately 200 pieces of human remains and the process will take a long time, and the earliest the authorities may be able to match the DNA may only be on Monday. A sad atmosphere surrounded the grounds of the Forensic Medicine Department of Tunku Ampuan Rahimah Klang Hospital since Thursday evening, as the victims' relatives wait for the body identification and autopsy process to be over. But the process was challenging for the hospital staff as it involved 200 pieces of human remains found at the crash site. The authorities also found a total of 22 body parts.
Human remain ini ada yang tinggal badan, ada yang kepala saja dan ada yang cebisan mengikut unit forensik, ada yang cebisan lebih kurang 200 lebih. Memakan masa untuk mendapatkan DNA sehingga hari Senin.
Tan Sri Razaruddin, speaking to the media at the Tunku Ampuan Rahimah Klang Hospital, also advised the victims' next of kin not to wait for their loved ones' remains, as they will not be released anytime soon. He added that the Selangor Islamic Religious Department will facilitate matters such as bathing the victims' remains and holding prayers, adding that 10 hearses have already been prepared. He noted that the police would also facilitate the necessary transport to ensure the victims' remains are buried in their respective hometowns. The IGP also said that the aircraft that crashed only contained a cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and no flight data recorder, FDR.
Dia tak ada flight data recorder. So bila kita tanya, dia ada separuh yang memang tak ada, langsung pun ada juga yang live flight memang tak ada, yang live craft lah kita tak ada. So semua tak ada satu. So daripada situ memang telah diambil oleh PSKU lah untuk siasatan.
The CVR was recovered at 10:20 p.m. on Thursday. In the meantime, motorists who recorded the plane crash with their vehicle dash cams have been urged to come forward. Tan Sri Razaruddin said the recordings will help in the probe into the incident.
Kita akan cuba cari. Kalau mereka boleh tampil untuk memberi maklumat itu pun itu lebih baik.
Some video recordings by the public went viral on social media after the crash occurred on Thursday. It included dash camera footage from the front and rear of the vehicles. Meanwhile, the authorities have concluded the search for human remains, as well as the cleanup of all debris at the site of the plane crash in Elmina. Senior Fire and Rescue Department Superintendent Samso Marif Saibani said the affected roads have now been opened to the public in both directions. The wreckage and debris have been collected for investigation. The cleanup has been done by the Fire and Rescue Department for both lanes leading in and out of Elmina. The police have also given permission for the roads to be reopened to the public. Now, the mother of 53-year-old Sharipuddin Sha'ari, the e-hailing driver who was among those killed in Thursday's tragic plane crash, had been missing her son since 3 days ago. According to the victim's 68-year-old cousin, Masna Abdullah, her aunt 80-year-old Hatun Abu Bakar had also lost her appetite, as though she knew in her gut that her son would be gone forever, even before the incident occurred.
Dia sebut, tapi orang kita teringat, dia teringat. Dia tak lalu makan, bagi pun dia makan kata, saya panggil ngoh lah, pakai ngoh nak makan apa tak mau. Kita dah pergi umur kita nak apa, dia nak jamu lah, orang tua-tua. Tapi dia tak mau. Dia tak lalu kot kan. Teringat kot no, Allah bagi kot selama ni tak apa kot no.
Masna also said Sharipuddin's family had left for Kuala Lumpur after Subuh prayers on Friday, but no one has told her aunt, whom she calls Makna, about what happened to her son because she has a heart disease. Sharipuddin, who was known to be kind and helpful, had been living with his mother in Arau Perlis until end of last year before moving to Sepang to find work. He leaves behind his wife, 43-year-old Suryana Muda, as well as a son and daughter, Muhammad Sharul Izwan and Nur Izara Arisya, aged 16 and 9 respectively. Meanwhile, out of the blue, the late Captain Shahrul Kamal Roslan, the pilot of the ill-fated plane that crashed in Elmina, gave his wife's contact details to a person known as Captain Halim last week, should anything happen to him. His brother-in-law, 39-year-old Syed Tahir Syed Muhammad, shared this with reporters at the Tunku Ampuan Rahimah Hospital in Klang, where the remains of those killed in the tragedy had been taken to.
Tapi dia ada juga bagi nombor telefon adik saya, adalah isteri dia. Minggu lepas nombor telefon just anything happen. Sebab sebelum tu tak ada bagi tahu. So nama kapten tu Halim. So Halim tu pun terkejut. Kenapa bagi dia nombor telefon isterinya.
Syed Tahir also said that when the incident happened on Thursday, Captain Halim was the first person to call to inform them about the crash. He also described his late brother-in-law as a cheerful, loving person who was loved by many, adding that Captain Shahrul's remains will be taken to his parents' house in Malawati for burial rites before he is laid to rest.
Mungkin daripada tu, mungkin dia dapat rahsiakan, cuma tak beritahu.
On Thursday, the Beechcraft Model 390, a six-seater aircraft, crashed near the Elmina township in Shah Alam while approaching the Subang airport from Langkawi. The devastating crash resulted in the loss of all 8 individuals aboard the aircraft, including 2 flight crew members, as well as a passing motorcyclist and car driver. Families of the victims of the plane crash will receive financial and social aid from the government. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim, in announcing the matter, said all federal and state government agencies were told to help the families in any way they can, be it monetary or mental health support.
Sekarang ini kita bagi semua bantuan diperlukan untuk uruskan jenazah, semua kelengkapan, penginapan dia semua. Selain daripada itu, kita kerajaan dan bagi bantuan keluarga menampung, terutama yang tidak punya pekerjaan tetap dari pihak keluarga.
The Prime Minister spoke to the media when he visited the families of the victims at the Tunku Ampuan Rahimah Hospital in Klang, Selangor. He said this included the assistance for the families to manage the burial rites for their loved ones who were killed in Thursday's tragic accident. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi was also seen at the hospital to offer their well wishes and condolences to families of the crash victims.
This week on Money Matters, we'll talk about the key elements of a successful economy, how to position itself as one of the 30 economic powerhouses by setting the right tone towards building a better Malaysia. Join us with Khazanah National's Managing Director, Dato' Amirul Faisal Wan Zahir, this Saturday, 5 p.m. on TV3 and live HD stream on Tonton.
In other news, Malaysia's economy expanded by 2.9% in the second quarter of this year, supported by improving labour market and the continued increase in domestic demand and tourism activities. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia DOSM's chief statistician, Datuk Sri Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, the economic growth moderated during the quarter, partly due to weaker external demand, lower commodity production, and high base effect from the same quarter last year. With GDP growth in the first quarter at 5.6%, the average growth for the first half of the year stood at 4.25%. GDP by production approach saw growth in services, construction and manufacturing, while agriculture, mining and quarrying experiencing a decline. In the meantime, the central bank said the country's economy remains on track to achieve a growth of between 4 and 5% this year. Headline inflation is also set to average between 2.8 and 3.8% due to elevated core inflation and gradual subsidy rationalization. Meanwhile, economists opine that the government needs to redirect more resources in order to ensure that the domestic engine continues to grow and be able to offset the global weaknesses. Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad's chief economist Muhammad Afzanizam Abdul Rashid stated that the easing of economic growth in the second quarter shows that the Malaysian economy is susceptible to the weakening demand from abroad.
The onus now is on the domestic factor to continue to grow at a robust rate. We shall expect infrastructure projects will be accelerated and monetary policy will remain accommodative, and therefore we shall expect OPR to be retained at 3% throughout the year.
The moderate growth was also offset by growth in private consumption, gross fixed capital, and stronger government consumption. Muhammad Afzanizam said the country is expected to see further moderations in terms of global demand due to the struggling Chinese economy and the global tightening of monetary conditions. Singapore set for three-way presidential contest. News from the foreign front right after this breather. The foreign news now. 3 Singapore presidential hopefuls have been issued the Certificate of Eligibility, COE, from the Presidential Elections Committee, PEC, on Friday, allowing them to contest in the upcoming election. They are former GIC Chief Investment Officer Ng Kok Song, former Senior Minister Taman Shanmugaratnam, and former Chief Executive of NTUC Income, Tan Kin Lian. Businessman George Goh, who also publicly declared his intention to run for the role, however, did not receive a certificate. According to Goh, the PEC had rejected his application as it was not satisfied with the businessman's argument that his experience and performance in managing 5 different companies was equivalent to that of a CEO running a single company. On Thursday, the Elections Department announced that 6 people had submitted applications for the COE, one of the documents a person needs to contest in the election. Nominations will take place on August 22nd, with polling day set for September 1st. The wealthy property mogul set to become Thailand's new Prime Minister on Friday said he wanted to tackle poverty and inequality as he fended off corruption allegations ahead of a confirmation vote next week. In a video message on Facebook, Srettha Thavisin said his goal once he becomes Prime Minister is to make every Thai person's life better. Thavisin, the former head of the Thai property giant Sunsiri, also rejected allegations of improper dealings made in recent weeks by Chuwit Kamal Sit, a colourful former massage parlour tycoon turned anti-graft whistleblower. Chuwit had earlier this week asked police to investigate 2 land purchases by Sunsiri, which is listed on the Thai Stock Exchange. In the meantime, Parliament will meet on Tuesday to vote on whether to approve Thavisin as Prime Minister and end a 3-month race of rumbling political deadlock since a May general election. To become Premier, Thavisin needs a majority across both the lower house of 500 elected MPs and the 250-member Senate, which was handpicked by the kingdom's last junta. The World Health Organization, WHO, and U.S. health authorities on Friday said they are closely monitoring a new variant of COVID-19, although the potential impact of BA.286 is currently unknown. The WHO classified the new variant as one under surveillance due to the large number of spike gene mutations that it carries. It said the variant has only been detected in the US, Denmark, and Israel so far, and there are only 4 known sequences of the variant. Most countries that had established surveillance systems for the virus have since dismantled operations, determining it is no longer as severe and therefore could not justify the expense, a move that the WHO has denounced, calling it instead for stronger monitoring. We're back with sports, the 2023 Cincinnati Open. Novak Djokovic continued his domination over Gael Monfils, beating him 6-3, 6-2 in straight sets to book his spot in the quarterfinals on Thursday. Djokovic extended his head-to-head to 19-love against the Frenchman, beating Rafael Nadal's 18-love record against Richard Gasquet. Djokovic will next face Taylor Fritz in the last 8 with a 6-love record against the American. Earlier, 9th-seeded Fritz advanced to the quarterfinals after his opponent Dusan Lajovic of Serbia retired from the third-round match while trailing love 5 on Thursday. Lajovic, a qualifier, had beaten last week's winner Jannik Sinner in the second-round match. Also through to the quarterfinals is Carlos Alcaraz. This after Alcaraz and Tommy Paul added another intriguing chapter to their budding rivalry on Thursday at the Western and Southern Open, where the Spaniard prevailed 7-6, 6, 6-7, love, 6-3 in the third-round thriller. In the last 8, the 20-year-old will face qualifier Max Purcell, who earlier defeated Stan Wawrinka 6-4, 6-2. In the women's category, Tunisia's Ons Jabeur moved into the last 8 after Croatia's Donna Vekic retired from the match on Thursday. The 5th-seeded led 5-2 when Vekic, ranked number 22, pulled out at the Linda Tennis Family Center. Jabeur will next play the winner of the match between Daria Kasatkina, the number 14 seed, and Arina Sabalenka, the 2nd seed. Joining Jabeur is Marie Buskova of Czech Republic. Buskova moved into the last 8 of the Cincinnati Masters after defeating the 3rd-seeded Jessica Pegula of USA in straight sets 6-4, 6-love on Thursday. Buskova, the world number 35, will next face her compatriot Karolina Mukova, who in turn upset Maria Sakkari earlier the same day. Also through to the next round is Iga Swiatek. World number 1 Swiatek battled back from a set down to defeat China's Qinwen Zheng 3-6, 6-1, 6-1 to reach the quarterfinals for the first time on Thursday. For a place in the semi-finals, the 22-year-old Pole will face Marketa Vondrousova of Czech Republic, the world number 10, who defeated Sloane Stephens 7-5, 6-3 earlier the same day. More to come on Nightline. Over 5 million ringgit worth of heroin seized in drug bust. The details when we come back. Welcome back. Another round of elections, another setback for MUDA. The party led by Muar MP Syed Saddiq Abdul Rahman lost all 19 seats it contested in the Terengganu, Pulau Pinang, Selangor and Negeri Sembilan state elections. Even worse, all of the party's candidates lost their deposits. So where does MUDA go from here? FNT's Danish Raja Reza files this report.
Muda's options may have narrowed significantly after the trouncing it received at the state elections last Saturday. Political analyst Azmi Hassan of Akademi Nusantara believes the party is not suited to being a third force in Malaysian politics. Azmi says the election results showed that the party draws from the same voter base as Pakatan Harapan.
Muda has demonstrated that they can be a very brutal spoiler if the contest between Pakatan Nasional versus Pakatan Harapan or Pakatan Nasional versus Barisan Nasional is very close. Muda will attract voters who instead will vote Pakatan Harapan, but not Pakatan Nasional, because their demography of voters is totally different. So Muda voters is similar to Pakatan Harapan voters. So when Muda is together with Pakatan Harapan, it will pull votes from Pakatan Harapan. And in the end, Pakatan Harapan will lose, not Muda.
With no word on the outcome of its application to join PH, Muda President Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman announced in June the party's decision to contest the 6 state elections on its own. On August 12th, Muda lost all 19 seats it contested in Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Terengganu, and Penang. Its candidates also lost their deposits. Azmi thinks Muda's best option is to join the PH coalition. Alternatively, he says, the party should merge with either PKR or DAP. But that idea does not appeal to DAP Secretary General Loke Siew Fook. Political analyst Owe Sun from the Singapore Institute of International Affairs thinks a merger is logical but not a priority for DAP.
At the macro political level, it is a logical idea, as Muda attracts almost the same cohort of supporters as DAP, but it lacks the kind of party machinery as DAP. Muda is a plus but not a must for DAP.
O says Muda's immediate priority is to find a way to survive while on the sidelines.
While Muda prides itself on its fresh and young political image, it needs to humbly learn from the tried and tested methods of more established, previously opposition parties such as DAP and PKR. This includes persistent and consistent political messaging and more rapport with the grassroots.
For now, Muda has plenty to think about. Danish Raja Reza, FMT for Nightline.
Bukit Aman police have uncovered an illegal heroin processing laboratory and seized drugs worth 5.78 million ringgit in a series of raids in Pulau Pinang earlier this week. Federal Narcotics Criminal Investigation Department Director Datuk Sri Muhammad Kamaruddin Maddin said police also crippled a syndicate smuggling heroin base from Thailand to Malaysia. They said 2 men aged 42 and 46, both unemployed, had been detained to assist in the investigation. The arrest of the duo led police to a condominium in Tanjung Tokong, used by the syndicate as an illegal heroin processing laboratory. Among the drugs seized were 65.38 kilograms of heroin base, 13.62 kilograms of heroin, and 8.48 kilograms of caffeine powder, all of which are worth 5.78 million ringgit. Police also seized a vehicle worth 70,000 ringgit. The total seizure, including the drugs, amounted to 5.85 million ringgit. The case is being probed under the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952. Elsewhere, the Perlis Customs Department foiled an attempt to smuggle in 35 kilograms of shabu along the banks of the Kuala Perlis River on August 4th. State Customs Director Ismail Hashim said a shabu estimated to be worth around 1.15 million ringgit was found in a sack of rice left by the riverside at about 7:30 p.m. During the inspection, it was discovered that the drugs were hidden in golden packets of Chinese tea, and the supply could cater to about 174,000 drug addicts. It was believed that the smugglers used small boats to avoid being detected by authorities. No arrest has been made so far, and further investigation is being carried out under the Dangerous Drugs Act. Over in Perak, police crippled a drug trafficking syndicate by arresting 2 men and seizing drugs estimated to be worth 30.6 million ringgit in a raid in Klebang Chemo on Tuesday. Bukit Aman Narcotics Criminal Investigation Department, JSJN Director Datuk Sri Muhammad Kamaruddin Maddin, said both suspects were arrested at 9:30 a.m. in a rented bungalow that was used as a drug processing laboratory. According to Datuk Sri Muhammad Kamaruddin, the seizure involved Aramin 5 pills weighing 413.92 kilograms and Aramin 5 powder estimated to weigh 25.33 kilograms.
Turut dirampas adalah mesin-mesin serta peralatan yang digunakan untuk memproses dan membungkus darah serta 2 laras senjata api tiruan. Jadi modus operandi yang digunakan adalah mereka ini memproses dan membungkus darah pil Raymond 5 untuk diedarkan bagi pasaran tempatan dan juga untuk luar negeri Perak.
Based on initial investigation, both suspects were unemployed and had been active since March this year and were believed to have learned the drug-making process from social media and their friends. Aside from the drugs, cops also seized a Toyota Altis car, an EX5 motorcycle, 2 rings, and 1,624 ringgit in cash, believed to be proceeds from the drug sales. Authorities are also tracking down other members of the syndicate. The 2 men detained, both aged 44, also tested positive for amphetamine-type drugs and have past criminal and drug-related records. They have been remanded for 6 days to facilitate investigations under the Dangerous Drugs Act and Arms Act. That wraps Nightline this time around. We leave you now with visuals from the 10th Shenyang Faku International Flight Conference, which kicked off in China's Liaoning province with aerial acrobatic teams showcasing flight stunts. With that, I'm Raymond Goh. Thank you for tuning in and have a great weekend.